Hello, my dear students. I hope that this video finds you well. We will be covering our next paper, which is Riding the Heels of our Textual Analysis essay. So let's dive right in and check that out. So, as we were seeing, we learned in our lesson of textual analysis that the aim is to move from denotation to connotation, which is from surface level meaning to deeper level meaning. We learned that in order to do so, we consider things such as social cultural overtones and indirect suggestions. And so this assignment is a very good opportunity to enact this work of textual analysis and move from denotation to connotation. So what you will be doing is choosing a cultural artifact that tells a story. That could be something like a movie or an episode. You're not going to choose an entire series, but choose one episode, or a story, or a book, a play, or even a video game. Interestingly enough, video games also tell stories. So maybe a song or a music video. I think music videos are cool because they blend both lyrics, musical arrangement, and visuals. So you're going to choose something that you like that tells a message, and ultimately you're going to do the work of textual analysis to unearth what's the larger takeaway message of your artifact and how does it reflect it. How does that larger message connect to real life and why it's important? So what I have highlighted here in yellow is your main task. And for considerations, of course, you're having that in mind, and you're recalling that characters embody values, ideas, ideologies, and more times than not, the protagonist really represents the idea that is being glorified in the piece. So whether you are choosing a picture book, something like the Lorax, right, where we have the Lorax as representing conservationism and green ideology, and that's being celebrated, right, where the Onceler is this venture capitalist and represents just like somebody taking natural resources for a profit, right? So the thing is that characters represent ideas, ideals, values, and you're going to recognize that. And okay, who's the protagonist, and what are they embodying? What is the antagonist? What are they embodying, right? So I think a lot about superheroes. In superheroes, the hero represent justice, peace, order, right? And the antagonist, oftentimes the villains, are always have a short fuse. They go 0 to 100 really quickly. They go resort to violence all the time. They represent chaos, greed, megalomaniacs, right? People that want to take over the world. So characters represent ideas, ideals, and we bear in mind this when looking at our artifacts. So we're considering, okay, what value or ideal is being celebrated in our piece, right? And why is that important? Also, what idea is being vilified, maligned, right? Like, hey, it's a warning. This is not a good way of being. This is not good value. So I have created the considerations here to match up what our major task is, which is what's the larger theme? What's the larger takeaway of your artifact that you chose? How it's being reflected, and why is that larger message important? How does that connect to real life? So for this, there's a pitfall, which is just summarizing. You want to avoid mere summary and instead focus on this that is yellow. Focus on what is the takeaway message, and focus, how it reflects it. And a lot of times in things like fiction and cultural artifacts that tell a story, the way that a conflict is resolved, the resolution, tells us a lot because that is what we're left with. So how a movie ends, how a story ends, how a video game ends, is a place that leaves us with an ultimate takeaway. So pay attention to how something ends as a good indicator for a takeaway message. So we want to avoid merely summarizing because summary is denotation, right? You can indeed mention plot points to help support your overall argument of what the larger takeaway message is. That should be your focus. So ultimately, the final draft will be at least 3 pages, 1,000 words. Pay attention to our deadlines. Of course, we're following MLA, and of course, don't have AI write your work, as that's cheating. That's not your work, right? Um, Now here is your prompt, and I actually want to show you the brainstorm which I've created, the outline, which is really helpful. This is the first one that is going to be due, so pay attention to this. You're going to say what your selected cultural artifact is. Remember, a cultural artifact, there's been some confusion. Like in the past, some students got confused and they wrote about the television or the radio or the American flag or something. When we say cultural artifact, we mean more like something like a text, right? That tells a story. So something like a book, like an episode, like a story, like a play, a video game, a song, a music video, a picture book, whatever you choose. So you're going to write that here. Remember, don't choose an entire series of something, but rather one episode. I personally always like the Twilight Zone, so I probably would choose something from Twilight Zone. So you would type here, what is the type of artifact? What is it? A music video or a story? Or you tell me. And then describe it briefly, what it is. And then here we're going to start with a little bit of denotation. So as you are watching your music video or your movie or you're reading your story, you're going to be taking notes of things that you notice. That's denotation. Just like we did in our lesson on textual analysis, where we noticed the surface level things first. And so you're going to have that here. If it's something written or literary, what are some descriptions of the setting or characters or things they say or narrative style, like surface level things. What's a golden quote, for example, which is an important or striking quote that stands out? What is the word choice like? What's the tone like? Like, what are things that you notice upon first encounter, right? So whether those are visual elements or audio elements, characters, who are the characters? How are they presented or portrayed? So pay attention to this. If you're into music, I really recommend a music video. Print out the lyrics, and as you go through the lyrics, highlight and annotate what you see. Is there any like a rhyme scheme or repetition, or what do you see the larger message being? And things like that. And then pay attention to the music video because it blends visuals. So how do the visuals work together with the song itself, with the musical arrangement, whatever the case may be? So take notes of things that you notice, and that's what we're going to have in this section, which is the denotation section. And then to what happens in your artifact, in your story, your episode, whatever the case, whatever you chose. And once again, so who are the characters that are glorifying a particular value? If you're doing like a hero, like I like the episode of X-Men called Enter Magneto because it demonstrates the parallels that X-Men had with American civil rights. And it was neat. It was Enter Magneto, and it's an episode of X-Men animated series, and it was showing how Professor X embodied the ideology of Martin Luther King, and Magneto was more like Malcolm X ideology. So pay attention to that. Who are the characters? What ideas, ideals, values do they represent? And same thing, like who's the antagonist? What is an ideal that is being maligned or, in this case, warned against? Like, hey, this is a vilified value. This is something you don't want, right? So the antagonist will often embody that. Here's some other things, like maybe any symbols or images you might see. And then also, how does the topic or the larger message connect to real life? You're going to say that here. Additionally, if the conflict is resolved, what does that tell us about the ultimate takeaway of your movie, of your song, of your music video, or whatever your artifact is, of your story? What's the larger takeaway of your artifact? How does it communicate this message? So once again, how are the smaller elements working to offer us this? Maybe it's like, like I said, like a particular protagonist is embodying a value, or maybe you're seeing in your artifact like I said, like it's connecting a lot of things to real life, and it's making a commentary on something that is happening currently, right? So why is this message important? And just focus on this, guys. What is in yellow, this is your main task. And this is going to help you to craft your thesis. So of course, first you want to introduce the topic. Like, let's say you're doing a movie and the larger takeaway is about never giving up and being persistent. So never give up. That's the takeaway message. And how does it reflect this? Like what is it that the movie does or whatever you chose that reflects this larger message? How does that larger message connect to your life and why that's important? So you want to add all this together into your thesis statement. So if you say something like, you introduce the topic, so you say something like, in order to achieve one's dreams, it's important to not give up. This very idea is exemplified in the maybe say the year blank years film entitled, I don't know, Remember the Titans or whatever the movie is called, right? And then so you say that you introduce the takeaway message, which is, hey, don't give up, never give up. It's important to not give up. This film reflects this. And how does it do so? It does so through the plot sequences and how in the resolution, the team is able to achieve their goal or whatever the case may be. This message connects to real life because this applies to everything that we set our minds to, that persistence and never giving up is important. And then why is this important? This is important because it is a key component of because persistence is a key component of achieving one's dream. So that was just an example, like if I was doing it on something. So that's what you want to do. And then we start in structuring. So how are you going to grab the reader's attention to introduce this topic? Like say I was doing about the importance of persistence and not giving up. So how I would introduce that. And then say here, introduce the topic, whether it's a movie or a story, whatever the case may be, and make it clear that that artifact reflects this larger message. And how it does so, right? Which is what you're going to do here. You're going to put this stuff together. So introduce the artifact, say that reflects the larger message. So you can introduce what's the topic of the takeaway message, say that the artifact reflects it, how it does so, right? And how does that larger message connect to real life and why it's important? Next, we come to crafting our actual body paragraphs. So remember, all the body paragraphs are all supporting whatever your thesis is, whatever your claim is about. What's the larger takeaway of your artifact in this instance? So I have some ideas for potential topics for each paragraph. This is up to you what you decide to make each body paragraph, but let's say you make this one about what's the theme or takeaway message. Every paragraph has a topic sentence. Just like every essay has a thesis, which is the main idea, then every body paragraph has a topic sentence. What's the main idea of your paragraph? And then what will you use as evidence? So from evidence from your music video or your story, or what are you going to use to support whatever your topic sentence is? Analysis is how you will put that together. How will you use the parts from the movie or episode that you're looking on to support your topic sentence? You're going to blend that here. And like I said, these body paragraphs, it's giving you ideas for some potential things you want to make your paragraphs about. Like let's say the first one, you make it about what's the takeaway message, how the artifact reflects that. And the last one, like why that message is important or connects to real life. It's up to you how you want to craft it, but those are some ideas. But ultimately, they all follow the same structure of what's your topic sentence for the paragraph, what evidence will you use from your artifact to support that, and the analysis is how you will do so, right? How you will use this evidence to support your topic sentence of your body paragraph. In the conclusion, obviously, you want to reaffirm what your project was, what your thesis was. And once again, you can remind the reader the key points of your analysis of your paper, and then ultimately zero in on why this larger message or takeaway is important. Here's the part, like if there's any like key quotes or like moments that you want to use from your artifact, this is just to remind you. And then this is like, okay, I'm going to use this quote here, number one, and then how you're going to use it here. I'm going to use this moment in the episode, and then I'm going to use it this way. And you're going to remind yourself how you're going to use that to support your own argument of supporting what the takeaway message is of your artifact, which is ultimately your thesis, right? That's your larger project of your paper. Here you're going to write as a reminder, because we need works cited, right? We give credit where credit is due. So what's your primary source, your chosen artifact? Secondary sources, it's not necessary, but in case you do use something else, then you have to also cite that. So that is our brainstorm. That is our first thing we're going to be focusing on for our paper. Remember to work with our embedded tutor if you have any questions, or feel free to reach out to me too. We're both here to serve you. I hope this helps, and have fun with this. And my recommendation is choose something that you really think is cool. Like if you're into video games, I know that Steam makes a lot of indie games with really cool stories. Or if you're into a particular series, like choose a specific episode that you like, or even choose a picture book or a story or whatever the case may be. Something you're passionate and truly like. Have fun with this. I look forward to reading your stuff, guys.